Hey, how's it going, folks? It's me, that guy who keeps making Initial D and Fast and Furious videos, and then wonders why people only watch Initial D and Fast and Furious videos. You hear about video games? Yeah, video games. The ultimate art form. One day you'll have to go to the Louvre to play Shadow the Hedgehog. Over the years, we've covered the Fast and the Furious a bunch of times. All three of the first three films twice. Maybe someday I'll even have to do Tokyo Drift again thanks to a bullshit copyright claim from Universal Pictures. Hey, I'm not upset. It's only one of my most popular videos, completely unmonetizable. I could have made tens of dollars off that. Anyway, we're not done with the films yet, but I thought it'd be a fun little detour to go outside the box and take a look at some of the Fast and Furious video games that have come out over the years. Plus, I got one of these, so if I use it in a video, I can write it off on my taxes.
Fun fact, you can just enter in random numbers on your 1040 form and get back tons of money.
The Fast and the Furious seems like a no-brainer for video games. The series is full of danger, ridiculousness, action set pieces, absurdity, fast cars, other various synonyms, and it's also a recognizable IP. Not to mention, Vin Diesel, a big video gamist himself, actually founded a game studio called Tekken Games, with the specific goal of making video games featuring Vin Diesel. This studio will save the industry, mark my words. Now, there are a lot of Fast and Furious video games, way more than I thought there were when I came up with this idea. I thought there were like 3. Because there are so goddamn many of these games, something's gotta give, and that's why I decided to not bother with all of the mobile games that have come out over the years, and just focus on the 4 main console games and the 4 arcade games I could get a hold of. My local Dave & Buster's doesn't have the newest one, and I can't find an ISO or ROM online for it, so, you know, I'm not paying $28,000 for an official machine. The phone games just aren't particularly all that interesting, you know, I mean, they were made to be played with one of these, you drive a car. And in many cases, I couldn't even find a scary Russian website full of fake download buttons to play these games even if I wanted to. I'm not risking downloading a Bitcoin miner or ransomware on my computer just to play this.
Get a load of these scumbags. This is the best race you could set us up with? I thought your boy Vince was hooked up.
As funny as that is, it's just not worth it. I know not covering the mobile games may be disappointing to some people, but to me personally, it was pretty awesome. I didn't want to play these. And we're also not going to be able to do the Forza Horizon 2 Fast and Furious DLC campaign because it got delisted everywhere and it's practically impossible to get a hold of nowadays. So fuck it. To determine the best Fast and Furious video game, we're doing a tier list. Am I a real YouTuber yet? Wow, this fraud piece of shit is only reviewing the 8 most interesting Fast and Furious games that people have actually played and are on popular consoles and are reasonably easy to get. What a piece of shit. Hey, it could be worse. I could have done the Flash games. Alright, so here's Fast and Furious, find the numbers. What the fuck? This is literally impossible! It's the first Fast and Furious game ever made. It's the Raw Thrills arcade racer, The Fast and the Furious! This game comes from the same people who made the Cruising series after they did some sort of split with Midway when Midway wanted to stop doing arcade games, but this guy, Eugene Davis, wanted to keep making arcade games, so he founded Raw Thrills and kept making arcade games. Raw Thrills is actually kind of the GOAT. They made that Jurassic Park arcade game,
Classics.
H2 Overdrive,
Classics.
Wheel of Fortune,
Classics.
Terminator Salvation.
Classics.
They make all the cool arcade games that don't really give out tickets, but you get to like drive around and shoot at shit. They made that one VR Godzilla game at Dave & Buster's, which is a fun game, but you don't get to keep playing for free if you keep winning, which I think is a little bit fucked up, and you should get to keep playing if you keep winning, Eugene Davis. I think that's how that game should work. Anyway, the Fast and the Furious arcade, you know, the bulk of the references to the films in this, beyond like the logos and the wallpapers, is in the cars. Mostly the Supra, Eclipse, and Skyline, all with their movie-accurate colors and decals. And I forgot to mention there's also a Pontiac GTO, which wasn't in any of the movies at this point, but there is a little Dom right there. 3D render of Dom, so that's pretty cool. Otherwise, it's kind of just your typical fun arcade racer. The maps are kind of just your average drive around popular big cities. LA Ghetto, Hollywood, and Malibu are the closest to being related to any of the first two films, but you know, that's only if you're like dyslexic and you get Malibu mixed up with Miami when you're taking notes, so actually it's just the first movie. And I also forgot to mention Race Wars. That's a map in the game. Takes place in the desert. It's Race Wars. Direct movie reference. I'm a piece of shit for not remembering that when I wrote the scripts. Nothing wrong with the maps not having anything to do with anything, but it does kind of just seem like an unrelated racing game with Fast and Furious branding sprinkled in very delicately to cash in on name recognition. Almost as if it would be very easy for them to simply remove those few paint jobs and re-release it as a game called Cruisin' on Wii. Almost as if. But you know what? It's a good game. Upgrading your ride is cool, you can make your cars look ridiculous. The racing is fast and hectic. You can double tap on the gas to do a car vault, which is rarely useful but always fun. Or you can just double tap to do a wheelie. You know, you can do anything. The world is your oyster. See that mountain? You can climb that mountain. If you win, you get a free race, so it's pretty hard to win because they want you to keep feeding quarters into the machine. That wasn't a problem for me though. I was emulating it on PC, so I can put as many quarters in my computer as I want. I'll get them all back when I'm done. I can go for as long as I need to see those FMV babes. You don't get to see the pixelated bikini babes unless you win. So you better think twice before not winning, son. But yeah, not a ton to say about this game. I'm feeling B tier. Fast and Furious Showdown? More like fuck I'm furious, shut down the console. I don't like this one. Developed by Firebrand Games in 2013 to serve as a tie-in that bridges the gap between Fast 5 and Fast 6. This is a game that made me angrier than I knew I could be. It reignited a raging fire within me that I thought had long since been extinguished. I would often end play sessions feeling physically ill thinking about the things I wished upon the developers of this game. I bought this game on Wii U because I thought that'd be the funniest console to play it on. Sometimes when you own a Wii U, you just kind of look at it and you think like, man, I gotta do something with you. If you're wondering how they integrate the gamepad, it just displays a rear view mirror perspective, which is kind of cute, but it also means if dad wants to watch baseball, you're playing this game backwards. Alright, so Showdown, clearly I had a good time with it, but what is it? Showdown is a racing / third person in a car shooter where you, yes you, take control of your favorite characters from the franchise like Brian, Letty, Owen Shaw, Tego or Leo, I don't remember, Han, Gina Carano, I think, and Ludacris, giving us 3 ludicrous points.
Ludacris is in it?
Notably absent is Dom, he's just not in it. They mention him like a dozen times, but I guess Vin Diesel's just too much of a big shot to be in this game. Too good to get down in the shit with the rest of your family. Roman's also not in it. This game is split into either racing or combat sections. They drop you off in a city and you either have to race like a bunch of opponents or shoot at a bunch of goons. You get to reenact certain iconic moments from the films, like who could forget the iconic safe pull from Fast 5? Or stealing oil tankers in Fast 4. Wow, it's like I'm really there. But this game does have its own like original story, I think. Despite the description saying it bridges 5 and 6, it can't possibly. I think maybe the missions with Letty and Shaw could somewhat be considered canon, but anything with Brian, Ludacris, Tego or Leo, Han, the other ones, there's absolutely no fucking way. There's like 4 stories going on, and I don't think any of them take place at the same time. Brian and Ludacris are doing like a Fast 4 type story where Brian somehow still works at the FBI and is helping Ludacris clear his name by going after like Argentinian drug dealers. But Han and Leo missions seem to be taking place during Fast 5 because they mention Reyes, But there's also these missions in the desert where they're talking about helping Dom and like a deal they have with a guy named Elvis. I don't know what the fuck that means. Oh, he's from Los Bandoleros. How foolish of me to not know. Then they rip down some communications towers and... Then there's the Letty and Shaw missions, which I don't think contradict anything. Those can be canon, like I said. Then there's Gina Carano and nondescript agent guy who are stopping Letty and Shaw's dastardly scheme that I don't think those are affected by the movies either. But the first mission in the game, you're Letty and Shaw flipping cars over in Russia. And that mission is also the last mission in the game. They are the exact same mission. But the second mission in the game is the safe pull from Fast 5, so that intersects with the Han and Leo missions. But I don't know when the Brian and Ludacris missions take place, whether that's before or after the Domless Fast 5. But all of their missions are flashbacks being told by Monica Fuentes from Too Fast, Too Furious. So maybe we can chalk it all up to her not knowing what the fuck she's talking about, and that's why all the lore is so inaccurate and everything is wrong. Driving feels alright, it's not amazing, it's not horrible, but there are some very odd decisions made, like having understeer and oversteer in a game that regularly requires you to corner at over 130 miles an hour in a Jeep Grand Cherokee on ice. You can't be doing all this shit and then having like a semi-realistic driving system. I mean, you can, but give it like 12 years and someone on YouTube, me, is gonna be pretty upset. So keep that in mind. These missions start out simple and easy enough, but pretty quickly you will come to find out that this game was developed by green men from Mars. Levels will demand absolute perfection from you just for no reason. One level towards the end of the game asks you to make it down a mountain pass in 4 minutes, which requires perfect drifting. Drifting's barely been a mechanic that you've needed to use. It's been like and you also have a health bar, so you can't like smash into the walls too much, and you're gonna smash into them a lot. You can get torn to shreds pretty quickly. A lot of levels give you the option to split between either driving or shooting. Generally, driving is easier because your AI opponent has perfect aim and you probably don't. The gunplay in this game kind of feels like if you had to aim with an Etch-a-Sketch. Just very slow and clunky and feels like shit. You go into like a Max Payne style like slow-mo shoot dodge, which is helpful slightly, but other missions like the one where Han and Tego or Leo have to pull down communications towers, your AI is never landing that shot. But if you switch over to shooting, then the AI driver starts driving away so you can't make the shot. It's very annoying, and that's kind of the entire game. Speaking of annoying, there is an upgrade system. You can make builds that will help you for either combat or race missions. But you have to exit the mission once you figure out what kind of mission it's going to be, because they don't tell you beforehand or give you the option to make your build beforehand. So you have to exit, wait through the load screen, and then slowly make either a driving or combat class, then reload the mission. Same with situations where your partner just has a better car. Like the street race, Brian's car is absolutely horrible, Ludacris's is much better, but you have to exit the mission and select Ludacris, but it defaults to Brian. If I have to give some positives, there were some brief flashes of fun. Driving the ramp car is kinda nifty. There was a mission on a mountain where you play as Letty and Shaw and you're like drifting down a mountain while she's shooting rockets out of there. And yeah, that feels very Fast and Furious. I think that should happen in a movie. I think drifting, shooting rockets out, pretty cool. I think just about every other mission was a huge slog and gave me a headache and stomach ulcers, and it made my foot hurt, and it made my hands hurt, it made my eyes hurt, it made my heart heavy. But all that considered, Ludacris is in it. You can play as him. It has stuff from the movies in it. It's got action and explosions. But on the flip side, I was ass mad almost the entire time I was playing it, and I regularly felt my heart being consumed by an evil aura that affected me in ways even outside of my time with the game. I'm going F tier, fuck this game and the horse it rode in on. Fast and Furious Drift is somewhere between a sequel and an update to the first game. Same shit, different wipe. That was disgusting. Spouting an impressive 6 new tracks in addition to the 12 from the previous game. There's a lot of maps in this game. This sequel is a certified beefy boy. And the new maps are pretty cool, you know, since this is technically somewhat based off Tokyo Drift, hence the drift in the title. The new maps are Japan themed. Ichi Deki Masu. It plays pretty much just like the first game. You can double tap the gas to do a car vault or a wheelie, but now you can also double tap it while turning to do a drift. Which is more cool than it is actually useful, just like the car vaults. All I can say for sure though is if you're like an upstairs neighbor, if you got like people who live underneath you, you gotta get this game. You want them to be hearing. You want to be hearing that when you're drifting and they're hitting a vault. They'll really like you.
Shut the fuck up!
Only a few maps actually make the drifting feel required, like the final map in the game, Mulholland Drive, which is based off the David Lynch film for some reason. It's got tons of hairpin corners, it's a tight, narrow road, it's fun. Though at that point in the game, if you're playing the maps chronologically, your car's gonna look so just fucking ridiculous and be going so fast. You're gonna be crashing a lot. I don't know if drifting is gonna help you much. Speaking of the car selection is a little bit odd in this game. You would think since it's so heavy on the Japan theme, they would go really hard in like a JDM direction. But no, they didn't. Out of the 12 cars available, only 3 of them are JDM. The rest are all Fords, Dodges, Pontiacs, Chevrolets. You got Han's orange and black RX-7, or you can change the color and decals, make it Dom's red RX-7. There's Neela's RX-8, you got the Too Fast R32 Skyline. Takashi's 350Z is here. The Ford Mustang from the end is also here, but that's not JDM. But it is movie reference, so movie points. Something interesting I noticed about the FMV crowds here is we got both Minecraft Steve and American Dad Steve. Those are 2 good-ass Steves. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's the first game plus some, but also minus some. But I think that I'm gonna put it above the first game in A tier. More like Shy Racers. Where the hell is everybody? Hang on, I got another opening line. More like Rise of Shitter. This game stinks. Rise of Shifter, stylized with a bunch of numbers and shit, is the first, and I pray to God only, video game based off the animated spin-off cartoon Fast and Furious Spy Racers, which I have never seen because cartoons don't exist. Now, it wouldn't be fair of me to review this game without being familiar with the source material, so I was forced to seek out a few episodes and judge it for myself. Wow, I sure did just watch a bunch of episodes and I'm not just pretending I did. I liked when CG Vin Diesel was in it. So I had a little adventure with this game. I beat the entire thing in like under 2 hours, and I was perplexed on why it was so goddamn easy. I never struggled to finish in first place. I barely even saw the other racers the entire time I was playing, and I thought that's just how it was. A boring, easy slog with brain-dead AI that even a child would be completely unchallenged by. The game never indicated that there were any difficulty options, so I didn't check. Until I did something I probably shouldn't do, and I checked out other reviews of the game to see if other people had the same issue with it being so piss easy. And I noticed that they were not having anywhere near as easy of a time as I was. So I went back and checked, and god damn it! God fucking damn it! It went from a game that I barely had to give an ounce of a fuck about and could beat every race with a resting heartbeat of 7, to a game where I was struggling to even finish in 7th place. All I can say is thank God I didn't bother checking initially, or I just wouldn't have beaten this game. Imagine what the comments would say if I didn't do that. The core gimmick of the game is your epic spy abilities. You can shoot paint forward. You can shoot paint backwards. You can do a boost. And then you have an ultimate ability, and I never found a use for the ultimate ability. It sucks. The boost is the best one, and it's not even close. When you're talking games primarily aimed at children with wacky abilities, your brain is automatically going to jump to games like Crash Team Racing, or Sonic All-Stars, or Madagascar's, or that other one that's very Lego Racers. But this game isn't anywhere near any of those. Well, it's probably better than Madagascar, let's be real. In those games, you get power-ups by running into like mystery boxes on the tracks, but in these ones, you build up like a power-up meter by doing like sick jumps and epic drifts. And you're really gonna want to keep that boost charge because the paint in this game is haunting. Take heed, the drones with the paint guns on them will ruin your entire life. They will shoot you relentlessly, take you from first place to last. They don't care who you are. It'll keep coming at you. I had those things hit me twice in a row. You literally go down to 0 miles an hour. When you're in first place and you hear this sound, you might as well accept your fate as the new mayor of fucked town. Population U, because you're absolutely fucked. Nothing can stop this attack, there's no way to avoid it, your ultimate doesn't work, you can't boost through it, abandon all hope. Forget any childish dreams you had of finishing within even the top 5. It'll never happen. The second you enter first place, they'll send drone after drone after drone at you, till you hobble over the finish line, dead last place, beaten and battered. This shit makes the Mario Kart Blue Shell look like a blueberry. This Spy Racer shit ain't for the faint of heart. Be ready to die. I bet the guy who came up with that attack is named Count Dickhead and everyone hates him. Now the plot of the game, because there is actually a story, is that this guy named Shifter might win a super invisible car that will help them do heists, which I guess heists are bad now. He might win it because the agency you work for set up epic race tournament with the car as a prize to lure out bad guys, but if the bad guys win, then they will get the car. Why did they do that? Alright, I'm feeling like C tier for this one. It's not the worst thing in the world, but that's almost worse. I can work with the worst thing ever. Mid is kind of hard to make funny with. Not to mention Ludacris isn't in it, and I don't know what Spy Racers is. Super Bikes! I don't know why this has Fast and Furious in the title. It literally has nothing to do with the movies at all. If you really want to stretch, yes, motorcycles were in the first movie. They've always been around. But when you think of the Fast and the Furious, you know, they're really not renowned for their great motorcycle action. They might as well have done Fast and Furious boats or dog sled. Paul Walker could be in that one. Now, all that being said, this game fucking rules. They did all new maps here, and they're all great. Way wackier and way more creative than we've seen from these arcade games thus far. You got maps where you break into a Daytona NASCAR race. You race on an exploding volcano. There's a rainbow road that kind of hurts my eyes to look at. Hell, you got a map set in South Dakota. That's insane. Not as crazy as the Detroit map, though. The entire city is on fire and you're ramping off pillars of garbage on the dilapidated buildings that are like collapsing around you. A scathing political indictment on a once great city. Truly, video games are art. I don't know dick about motorcycles. I'm gonna assume the selection is fine enough. This game was originally intended to be played sitting down on a big-ass motorcycle controller. We've all seen something like this at an arcade, perhaps maybe even one of the sequels, because later games did drop the Fast and Furious branding, rightfully so. But am I really getting the full experience of the game if I'm playing with a racing wheel and pedals? No, but what the hell are you gonna do, huh? Pay $2,995 to have an arcade unit shipped across the country and installed in my living room, just so I can play this game the way God intended. Anyway, I'm going B tier. It's pretty good.
I'm just sitting watching TV. Who's that looking through my window?
In 2003, it was announced that Genki, a developer primarily known for the racing franchises like Tokyo Extreme Racer and Wangan Midnight, an anime that I will never review because I don't like it. Genki was working on an open-world Fast and Furious game set in Los Angeles where you drive around, earn money, do street races, upgrade your car, and build a reputation. Work was far enough along on it that there was even a trailer for the game on 2 Fast and Furious DVDs. They thought this shit was coming out. But the game would never come out for whatever reason, be it other games like Need for Speed Underground or Midnight Club just outclassing it. We don't know. Point is, didn't come out. But eventually a different developer, I don't know how to pronounce this, Uch Technics, would take over the project and actually get something out the door. Technics would retool the game to make it tie into the upcoming Tokyo Drift film, and they would finally get the game out in September of 2006, a few months after the movie, and just a few months before the PS3 would come out, and make this look kind of pretty dated. The Fast and the Furious for PS2 sees you, yes you, as an up-and-coming street racer who's gonna buy cars, upgrade cars, race cars, and make a name for yourself as a street racer. Pretty much what the Genki game was gonna be, but instead of Place USA, it's Place Japan. Ichigakimasu.
This is the famous Wangan Highway. This is where everybody comes to get their speed kicks. On a night like this, you'll see everyone come out to battle, and it gets real dirty.
This game doesn't exactly have nothing to do with the movies, but it kinda has nothing to do with the movies. Besides some scant references like Dom's Muscle Shop or Dom, Brian, and Takashi being raceable, Twinkie, Sean, Virgil, and Han are also in the game. I just didn't know that when I wrote this video. Oops. It's kinda just a racing game set in Japan. And that's not exactly like a bad thing, you know? You got a handful of great mountain passes and highways if that's your thing. It's what they call Simcade, a middle ground between a hardcore racing game that I'm bad at and an arcade game that I'm okay at. You know, this game is simple. You can buy an 8.6 because you watch too much anime, write penis on the side, and have a good time. You got 2 modes in this game. There's Wangan Highway Racing, and there's Toge Mountain Drifting. And within those are 2 modes. Grip Battle, which is a normal race, or Drift Battle, where points matter more than actually coming in first. And then for Wangan, you got Destination Battle and Max Speed, which Max Speed just kind of means you hit the NOS and win. Drift Battle is completely busted because even if you crash your car, you still get points. So you can kind of just drive like a complete piece of shit lunatic, wreck every corner, and you can still win by like a huge margin. Grip Battle is definitely way more intense. You actually have to win the race to win. You can't just crash 1,000 times and win on a technicality. You have to like drift smart and you have to have control over your car. And speaking of drifting, there are almost more references to Initial D than there are to Fast and Furious in this game. You got a yellow RX-7 FD driven by Reisuke, a white RX-7 FC driven by Kiyosuke, and an 8.6 with stickers on the side door, and you compete in drift battles with all of them. It has to be a reference to Initial D, like, come on. I didn't end up beating this game. It does get fairly repetitive, honestly. At a certain point, you kind of just got to be like, yeah, I get it. If you're a fan of these old PS2 racing games, particularly ones with really long load screens, you might get a lot more out of it than I did. Although there are probably also much better options for you out there. It's obvious that a lot of love and care went into this game, and the racing physics and building the maps, and the soundtrack is great. I mean, you can race a guy in this game named Potatoes O'Brien. Obviously they cared. It's really not bad, it's just not particularly amazing either. There were always better options if drifting around mountains or racing on the highway was your cup of tea. I'm feeling B tier, probably above the other thing I put in B tier that I don't remember now. Super Cars! It's a bit of a mixed bag for me. It should be the best Fast and Furious arcade game. It has every map from the previous 3 games. That's an insane 27 maps, but 0 new maps. All the mechanics like drifting and car vaults are here if you double tap, so you can still like piss off your downstairs neighbors. Don't worry. and you can still make your cars look crazy, but the cars are probably one of my biggest issues with this game. There's a distinct lack of cars from the movies here, or at least a lack of the iconic cars from the movies. You got the GTR, but it's the R35, not the R32. Not nearly as iconic. Argue with me all you want, there's no Lego R35 from the end of Fast 5. There are other toys of it, but not Lego, so fuck you. I don't know, I just feel like if you're gonna put the Fast and Furious name in your arcade cabinet, like, give us something, give us a little bit, come on. The only other major difference I noticed between this and the previous entries is that there's now consolation babes. If you get first, you get her. If you get any other place, you get her. Imagine finding out you're the consolation babe. Devastating for this poor actress, I'm sure.
I was in the arcade getting turned on by the women in bikinis in Cruisin' World. Oh, those breasts, hips, legs, and that tight pussy. I jerked off right there in my pants.
Now for me, a guy trying to make an interesting video about Fast and Furious games, all the maps being repeats from previous entries and the cars having no references to the movies is a bit lame. There's very little for me to talk about now. But if you're just like in an arcade, this might be the one you want to see. So many maps, so many babes. That's a good ass night. By having all the maps and the mechanics and the FMV babes, you know, it kind of just automatically ends up in A tier. But I can't in good consciousness call it the best Fast and Furious game, because it's like it's the best game, but it's not the best Fast and Furious game. It's kind of just a game that says Fast and Furious on it. Wearing this coat is making me sweat a lot more than I thought it would when I decided to wear it as my outfit. And this is probably going to be the most controversial statement in my whole career. I didn't hate this game. In fact, I kinda liked it. When Crossroads came out in 2020, people were pissed. Overwhelmingly negative reviews, low scores, Moist Critical gave it like a 10% on the Moist meter. This game was ripped to shreds. The graphics were bad. The gameplay was bad. The controls were bad. The people who made it were bad. It was being called the worst game of the entire generation. How could Vin Diesel, the one who brought us Wheelman, do this to us gamers? Now, I actually didn't know any of this when I first sat down to play the game. I went in totally blind. For all I knew, this was gonna be just like all the other ones. Probably just another racing game where you buy a car and drive it. For all I knew, this was gonna be just another basic-ass racing game with pretty much nothing to do with the Fast and the Furious. But oh shit, it's Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez, and they're actually like playing their characters. They're actually Dom and Letty, and we're stopping some sort of like wacky giant tank with silly spy devices. We got grappling hooks and missile launchers. There's car combat. There's cutscenes, like a story mode that actually kind of feels like the movies, particularly from the 8 onward era of the saga. This was the last game I hadn't played yet, so I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised to see a game finally try to invoke the giant set pieces and like absurd action in video game form. However, it quickly loses a lot of momentum when we switched from Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez to ew, characters I don't know, what? I could feel my inner chud rising. These movies are about giant buff gay men. So why are there women? What? The plot of the game mostly follows these two. You got Quirk Chungus, who speaks exclusively in millennial core, like Avengers, Saints Row, Forspoken type shit.
This city is actually quite beautiful. If I wasn't speeding by it at 1,000,000 miles per hour, I thought I was gonna hurl on the way up here. Woo! These crowds are fire! Morocco's a lovely place. Great people, gorgeous views, and a giant dusty death canyon. What did you do today? Oh, nothing much. Some cardio, updated my social media, outran an avalanche.
And then you got Vienna, who's, the bad guys kill her boyfriend and she's mad. So she teams up with her friend Quirk Chungus and Dom and Letty to stop the Tatacool, who are like a terrorist organization, who are gonna blah blah giant device, blah blah nuke America. The story's whatever, the point of the game is the giant set pieces. Driving through these big-ass saw things, got the mineshaft cave-in, chasing a train, dragging a giant round thing like Fast 5. I know that was a cube thing, shut up. Chasing after the airboat and the rocket, driving down a mountain while getting missiles rained down on you is pretty cool. They do kind of ruin it because you have to play as Quirk Chungus in that mission.
Outran an avalanche.
It's not like an amazing game. It's not like great. You don't need to rush out and get this. You know, Ludacris isn't even in it. But it was refreshing to have like somewhat of a coherent story and like cutscenes and characters from the movies. You know, Showdown tried, you know, in the same way that when I was like 5, I tried to build a time machine. Which is to say they fucking failed spectacularly, but like, I think Crossroads didn't do like too bad of a job. When you're driving, you have a few options for attacks depending on who you're playing as. Quirk Chungus has like a hacking minigame that's actually kind of hard to multitask on when you're driving. Vienna has a grappling hook, Letty has missiles, I think Dom also has missiles, but sometimes bigger missiles. Now everyone has the, I think it's called the shunt ability, where you can like quickly dash your car into someone else's and like hit them, but it also does a little bit of damage to you, and is also usually your only option. So if you've been driving like a piece of shit, crashing into everything, and your health is low from that, and then you have to do combat too, you might, and while we're on the topic of driving, I actually thought the driving felt not bad. A lot of reviewers really overplayed how bad the driving feels. I think it actually, in comparison to some of the things I've played, feels pretty good. I suppose my judgment of this game might be a little skewered by the fact that I only paid like 10 or 11 bucks for it used, and played it years later, totally separated from all of the outrage. I assume probably they patched it and got some like glitches out maybe. Plus I also just have context for like how low it can really go. Maybe if I never played Showdown and I paid a full $60 at launch for this game, I'd be pissed too. But for a licensed movie tie-in game, I had a surprisingly not bad time with this. Should the price of something factor into the enjoyment you get from it? Or should we just take it as it is and just look at it as a complete package, let all the other outside factors slip away? I don't have the answer to that question, but what I can say is that if 7-Up cost 40 bucks, it'd be the worst fucking soda you could ever buy. And this game probably only should have been like $30 max. Thankfully for you though, they delisted the game, so you can only get it for cheap on eBay now. I'm putting it at the top of A tier anyway, they'll fight me, fuck you. So you've probably noticed that no game is in S tier. And that's because I don't think any of these games really are S tier. I think really only Showdown and Crossroads have anything to do with the series and aren't just regular racing games with a few references sprinkled in. And Showdown is genuinely horrible, and Crossroads is kinda just upper mid. The arcade games are without question the best games on here, but they're also kinda just racing games. They're not really Fast and Furious, you know? At the end of the day, I feel like Crossroads, while not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, does feel the most like the movies in video game mode. Due to how much of a failure it was both critically and commercially, I think it's unlikely we'll see another big console release like this with actors from the movies and cutscenes and a story that tries to do more than just make you race around. Obviously they're not totally out of the game market. Spy Racers and the newest arcade game both came out after Crossroads, but I think it's fair to say that the series has yet to produce a game that really captures the whole essence of the series, the aura, the action, the characters, the humor. Modern technology maybe just isn't capable of it, but maybe one day. I think maybe the ideal game would be like Crossroads, but better. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck you do. I make the video, I don't make the game.